In this video, we are going to examine the ideology of environmental possibilism in Singapore. Using the examples of City in the Garden and Gardens by the Bay, we will show how the ideas of environmental possibilism are being translated into actions in Singapore. Indeed, an extended argument can be made that possibilism in the environmental scene mirrors that of Singapore's political ideology, that for a nation not to be to survive, a controlled and planned methodology of development through the application of science and technology must be achieved. Environmental possibilism is the belief that humans are the primary force shaping culture and society through the use of our consciousness, intelligence, and technology. Humans are the active and dominant participants in human-nature relations. In contrast, the physical environment is a passive entity which enables humans the liberty to choose between a wide range of environmental possibilities. Although environmental possibilists do not deny the influence of the environment over us, the extent of such influence is very minimal. On the other hand, environmental determinism represents the extreme opposite to environmental possibilism. In contrast to environmental possibilists, environmental determinists view the environment as rigidly controlling human activities. The climate and the geographical availability of resources, as well as other natural conditions, determine the success or failure of a society, including nation-states. Since Singapore's early days, the idea of garden city has been carefully planned for and implemented through the planting of trees, building of urban parks, and the cleaning up of its streets. Singapore has slowly but surely earned the reputation of a clean and green city. The state embraced a pragmatic environmental ideology that hinges on possibilistic and anthropocentric human-nature relationships. Indeed, this ideology was strongly tied to the economic necessity of a newly independent Singapore. Singapore's founding Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, said,
"After independence, I searched for some dramatic ways to distinguish ourselves from other third world countries. I settled for a clean and green Singapore. One arm of my strategy was to make Singapore into an oasis in Southeast Asia. For if we have first world standards, then businessmen and tourists would make us a base for their business and tours of the region."
Indeed, while roadside trees were planted and urban parks built, natural sites such as the Senoko Bird Sanctuary and Pandan Nature Reserve were destroyed or degraded in the name of development. This mastery of nature by the state, when nature is just a tool for mankind to be used for their own means, demonstrates the environmental possibilism outlook in Singapore. The Garden City was transformed to the City in the Garden by the National Parks Board, or NParks, in 2011, in a bid to bring the green spaces and the biodiversity closer to Singaporeans' homes and workplaces through the connectivity of parks, gardens, streetscapes. Yet, the underlying environmental possibilism outlook remains. Consider the artificiality of parks and gardens that are built after natural areas destroyed. Indeed, words like garden and parks already connote the artificiality of nature. Or consider how nature is being employed for the recreational needs of citizens rather than safeguard for its own intrinsic value. Not only does nature serve as an anthropocentric purpose, it also has business value. One of the 6 key areas of NParks City in the Garden framework focuses on enhancing competency of Singapore's landscape and horticulture industry. Another aims to establish world-class gardens, such as Gardens by the Bay, in a bid to attract both international and local tourist revenues. One of Singapore's attempts to introduce nature into its concrete urban space is its latest addition to the city centre, Gardens by the Bay. Gardens by the Bay is home to 3 different waterfront gardens, Bay South, Bay East, and Bay Central. Together, they house more than 225,000 species of plants, many which are not native to Singapore. As one of the icons of the city, Gardens by the Bay is construed as an economic resource through its contribution to the tourism industry. Despite being promoted as nature, a great dilemma of artificiality exists. This artificiality again demonstrates the environmental possibilistic motivation that enables such a grand-scale garden to be built and maintained. This dilemma is highlighted by two issues. First, the species of plants made available in this site, and second, the presence of gigantic artificial trees known as the super trees. The artificiality of the gardens is revealed by its deliberate inclusion of over 225,000 species of flowers that are mostly not commonly found in Singapore. These plants are maintained in domes with the use of technology to artificially mimic the temperature of their native environments. The notion of these plants are nature is now subject to question, as they would probably not survive if they were left in the tropical heat and humidity if not for the human-controlled environment. Humans' mastery of nature in this case cannot be more obvious. Meanwhile, the super trees are seen as a blend of nature, art, science, and technology. One of the unique features of the super trees is the use of photovoltaic cells to mimic photosynthesis. Such artificial characteristics of the super trees are supposedly environmentally sustainable technologies. Yet, a lot of energy could be saved if the domes that create an artificial environment for the non-native plants were replaced with native trees that do not need such technological intervention. Hence, not only is the artificiality of nature an issue, the high energy consumption leads to a net energy loss for the environment. The pseudo-nature of Gardens by the Bay reflects the extent to which the state goes to co-opt nature into its development agenda through the environmental possibilism ideology. The use of nature, especially nature that is non-native to Singapore, to create a garden in the new downtown of Singapore reflects the desire of the state to present Singapore as a global city that is open to the world. In this video, we have critically examined the ideology of environmental possibilism in Singapore. Through the examples of City in the Garden and Gardens by the Bay, we have demonstrated how the state conveniently used nature to pursue and package its neoliberal development agenda. The environmental possibilism ideology is an extension of the authoritative political ideology that the state deemed necessary to ensure Singapore's survival and success. In other words, the need to control features very strongly in the Singapore narrative. As Lee Kuan Yew said,
I am often accused of interfering in the private lives of citizens. Yes, had I not done that, we wouldn't be here today. And I say without the slightest remorse that we wouldn't be here. We would not have made economic progress if we had not intervened on very personal matters. Who your neighbor is, how you live, the noise you make, how you speak, or what language you use. We decide what is right. Never mind what the people think.
nature in this case is not an exemption.